currencies is becoming like a bullet in shooting down economies. A typical example, between the war between Russia and Ukraine, you realize that there was a sanction placed on Russia, and the sanction was tied to the use of United States dollars. So the dollar became a weapon. And when countries now see that a currency that is being used by all is now being turned to become like a weapon, individuals or countries now will decide to think about it. And that is one of the reasons why we have seen that there is this agitation that then we need to create an alternative form of currency with it. If you've noticed, we call it the petrodollar. In the past, all transactions in the crude oil were using the US dollars. Because of that particular sanction, we have seen that now Saudi Arabia is accepting other currencies in a form of trade, because they are afraid that if the US government or IMF or any kind of sanction goes on the line of, say, a country cannot trade in US dollars, then it's going to affect international trade. All these factors are hinges on three main themes when it comes to currency trade. We know that the military power of the United States, then also the economic power of the United States, and the international political power of the United States are the triangles that has made their currency very strong. So when it is being turned as a weapon, that is happening now, then current countries will start to think about it. We need an alternative. I give an example. There's a lot of exchange rate losses to countries who are using the United States dollars as a medium of exchange. And a lot of countries are now saying that their currencies have been weakened if it's seen as a weapon. And in Ghana, for instance, just the first quarter of this year, the cedi has devalued about 11%. Last year, the cedi devalued 30% to the US dollars. So it means that you don't have an economy. Your economy depends on the United States. I know in Kenya, the similar situation is happening. So what is really happening is that the dollar is being seen as a kind of a weapon being used to destabilize countries unless you have a stronger ties with the United States. And when it's going on that route, I mean, we have to look for an alternative. So that is why we've seen this discussion of looking for a way to reduce the dollar dominance in economic trade.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, in the likelihood of what is happening, and we are talking about using the dollar as a weapon, we are looking about the instability it is creating, and Prof. Pipra has mentioned about what is happening in Ghana, and it is affecting actually many other countries. The same thing in terms of the currency issues and the fact that there are monetary policies issues that are being affected. I want to ask, and I'm going to ask that to Prof. Tirimba, financially now, investment-wise, how is that going to impact the life of business people? How is that going to impact the life of those who are transacting in hard currency? Or even in the long term, I imagine even the ordinary citizens, because of their purchasing power, would have an issue. But let's talk closer home. In other words, those are entrepreneurs, those are financiers. Dr. Tirimba, what is your opinion about it?
Yes, thank you, Professor Marianne, for that question. First, I think it's very clear we are getting it that we are starting the process of de-dollarization, moving out of the dollar. BRICS countries have already started. Currently, Africa is having a conversation about the Pan-African payment and settlement system, which will be able to enable countries to trade directly with each other. And the current president of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, could not understand why, when we are trading between Kenya and Uganda, why do we have to bring on board the dollar? When we are trading between Kenya and Rwanda, why do we have to bring in the dollar? And therefore, that is the direction which countries are moving. So in terms of financially and investment-wise, I believe that it's going to have a lot of reaction, both directly and indirectly, starting with investment opportunity, whereby the dollarization might expand into the current investment opportunities, as countries will tend to diversify their reserve from that of the dollar, and they can now be able to promote even their currencies and adopt regional currencies for their trade. That will mean that as a result, it's going to have increased investment opportunities, reduced transactional costs because you do not have to change your local currency to that of the dollar. You can now directly trade with another country according to what you have agreed upon. With respect to asset pricing, of course, the aspect of the dollarization is likely to impact the pricing of assets, which are denominated in the form of the United States dollar, in a way that if the demand for the dollar treasury bonds is going to decline, that is going to affect even the yields and even the price thereof. And you find that individuals who are going to hold the US dollar denominated assets or investment, which are tied to the US markets, will tend to experience major shocks because of the current change. And probably just to add again, I believe that we are going to have a big issue in terms of currency volatility. You know, the dollar has been deemed to be stable, but if countries can now be able to agree to enter into international trade, whereby, for example, Kenya, we trade in the Kenyan shillings, and for example, a country like Turkey, they trade in the Turkish lira, you find that there's going to be a lot of fluctuation, which is going to bring a lot of uncertainty in the international trade due to constant fluctuation of the local currency with respect to that which is being traded. Unlike how it has been that they have been trading with the dollar, which has been deemed to be more stable over time. Thank you.
Kindly unmute.
Sorry, I was muted. So I was talking about the entrepreneurial, and you know, let's talk about now in terms of entrepreneurship, because we all know that for, you know, you have the financial institutions. They are there and they are trying to be able to arrange, and they are responding to the situation. But there are those also who have not started the business yet, and who may be motivated or demotivated depending on how they see the things, because we all know that sometimes those situations come, sometimes we say that it is good for some people and not good for other people. Some are gaining, others are losing. So let me ask now to Prof. Pepra, from an entrepreneurial point of view, how will that affect now the entrepreneurial activities? Let's start with the developing nations. What do you think? What, from your perspective as an entrepreneur, how is that going to help?
Thank you. So what we have noticed with the dollar becoming very dominant, and let me put it another way, very strong now, it's really affecting local entrepreneurs. They will have to look for more local currencies to go and exchange for fewer US dollars to be able to engage in international trade. What it means is that we are importing, let me put it in, other inflationary pressures into various countries. I use Ghana as an example. As I mentioned, within last year alone, inflation got to about 57% by December, and it's now around 43%. Majority of the major component of the inflation is a result of exchange rates devaluation of the cedi. So such a situation is what is really affecting entrepreneurs. Also, if an entrepreneur wants to go and look for facilities or loan to be able to engage in international trade, it becomes a challenge. The question they will ask is, you are going to sell your product in your local currency. How are you going to price your product in a way to be able to pay back the loan? So it really also affects pricing of products. Entrepreneurs are not able to price their product because the exchange rates between the local currency and the US dollars keep changing. It becomes very volatile. So these are the factors that are really affecting entrepreneurs. It affects planning. And for us in the developing countries, we cannot plan. We need a form of stable currency that will help us be able to plan the long term. If you find out that the dollar or the currency is devaluing all the time, it means that we have to increase our prices, and that is really happening in most economies in the world. So a little bit of the inflationary pressures we have seen in the world, most of us are saying that it's because of the dollar becoming stronger by the day. And if we have an alternative for someone in Ghana to be able to trade with someone in Kenya in an acceptable currency, between someone in Ghana and say South Africa in an acceptable currency within Africa, then it will be able to help us to be able to create a more entrepreneurship. But now the currency we are all using as our acceptable currency is really affecting planning, pricing of products, and also affecting consumer, also getting people to purchase. The purchasing power of individuals in their various countries have become very small, and in that cases are killing a lot of businesses. In Ghana, for instance, it is projected if we are not able to find a stable currency, a lot of businesses will have to lay off workers. Manufacturing companies are finding it difficult to import raw materials into the country. So these are the effects that we are seeing with the dollar becoming stronger. So it's for entrepreneurs, what we want is that currency should be stable so that we'll be able to plan and be able to price well, find customers that will be able to buy within their purchasing power.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Now, let me send the same question to Dr. Simatupang in Asia. Is that a different scenario? How does it look like over there?
Thank you, Dr. Mari. Let me put my answers by give some kind of the empirical results that I just look for. As we see from the reflected of the currency between euro and to US dollars, 2015 to 2020 is slightly decreasing. It's also reflect to the currency in between pound sterling to US dollar also seems that declining, but unlikely China yuan is different. They are quite stable and slightly increasing comparing to US currency. Reflect to this, my answering based on these empirical studies. In Asia perspective, the way is to face this kind of problems, I mean the fluctuations of currency, is to strengthening the domestics or the local productions by reducing import and increasing export to stabilize inflations and interest rates. And of course, the anticipation of the swift global change in the world is also happening now in ASEAN. Indonesia is a part of the Asian countries. Actually, we like to see this kind of the fluctuations of the currency by strengthening again the domestic productions rather than depending on resources from overseas or from our imports. So again, to answer the questions, the impact to the businessman or to the investor or entrepreneurs is based on how you utilize your domestic resource rather than to depend on developed countries.
Mhm.
I think that's a short answer for that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you. Now, I want to push a little bit more in terms of you know, what is happening now and we are hearing. Prof. Nasution, do you think that, what is the likelihood, what is the probability of that dollar primacy to shift to another currency? Now, I'm going to ask that to all of you, but let's start with you, Prof. What, in your perspective, based on your research, I know you've done some research and you've looked around and you've asked, but how is it looking like?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dr. Marian. Well, it is indeed very true. Since the invasion in 2022, you know, everybody would like to think of a suitable currency for its international trade. But remember, like BRICS that was formed in 2009, they have thought about using, you know, their own currency and toppling down the US dollar. Yeah, so de-dollarization is not now, no, but it has been a long time ago. But, you know, how many years until more or less about 15 years, you know, according to the statistic of IMF, the dollar trading in the international market is still very strong. I think it is representing something like 88, a little bit more than 88%, you know, while yuan is only representing about 2%. I think that is the statistic of the 2022. Not to mention the amount of US dollars that are included in the international reserve. That, you know, counts more or less about a little bit more than 60%. So you see, the de-dollarization has been a long time ago. It is only now that, you know, everybody is you know, more proactive in a way to think about, you know, how to de-dollarize. Like, for instance, from the Asian perspective, the ASEAN country, the Southeast Asian countries, the 10 of them have agreed just this year to use, not coming up with a what do you call that, own currency, like what happened with the European Union with the euro. Yeah, it is a successful single market. But in ASEAN, you know, they have decided to use the respective, you know, currency as a means of payment. Even, you know, as a means of a store of value. You see, everybody, you know, like what you have heard about Saudi Arabia is thinking about the petro yuan. You know, I don't have to elaborate on that. But the thing is, the point is that this de-dollarization has already begun a long time ago. But still, the result is still a question. Now, I would, what do you call that, give my, what do you call that, argumentation why it is so. Because, you know, sooner or later, somebody needs to come up with the right monetary system, which we do not know yet, okay? Now, since 1944, you know that the, since the Bretton Woods system was implemented, starting 1945 until now, the U.S. has been strong as far as being the constituents of the international financial institution. You see, like the World Bank, the IMF, and so on, which have given so much credit. And these credits needs to be paid in US dollar. You see, you know, this is things that worries me about how the BRICS Plus, you know, can think of a certain, what do you call that, currency, better currency for that. The other reason, this is the thing that maybe I need to share with you. You know, banking is not just a inshore banking. But, we do have also an offshore banking. Now, the offshore banking, well, of course, everybody knows it as the euro currency market. Like, well, the biggest one, of course, is the United Kingdom. And of course, the IMF financial centers have also big offshore banking, units. Of course, we have the Panama, we have the Cayman Islands, we have also some of the European country, even Asia. Yeah. You see, in 1997, after the Asian financial crisis, their turnover, was already big. At that time, according to IMF figures, I always quoted because I don't want to be misleading people. Of course, I quoted from the authorized institutions that it is more or less about a little bit less than 10 trillion. You see, 1997. Now, can you guess how much it is now? This offshore, banking unit turnover and transaction. It's a matter of couple of hundreds. I better not mention the exact number because it is still an estimate, but I think it is in the vicinity of a little bit less than 500 trillion US dollar. And you know that the deposit of these, banking unit, quote unquote, this illegitimate entrepreneurs. Now, we talk about entrepreneurs just now. I wanted to also speak, but maybe I speak in this portion. These entrepreneurs who are tax evaders, this money launderers, this even corruptors and so on. They are not. They do not want to allow U.S. dollar to slide away, because most of their investments, is in US dollar. You see, this is why what I said just now, that the US dollar, I share the comments of Dr. Pepra, that it is still strong, even though it is time now for us to find a new architectural monetary system itself. Yeah. Now, not to mention the third one, like the amounts of foreign direct investment, I'm talking about the outward foreign direct investment, like in 2022, from my research, I found out that the US and the European Union combined, I think it would, amount to something like 2 trillion. While the BRICS, it's just a little bit more than 0.6 trillion, you see? And you see this foreign direct investment, are concerned with entrepreneurial development. You see the US and the European Union as investors in all these regions, Africa, Asia, Latin America, and so on. They are not going to let the dollars, to be down that, you see? So this is something for BRICS to think about, yeah? How strong it is, And of course, the other thing that, I am a little bit skeptical is about this BRICS. BRICS is not a single market. Unlike the European Union, why they have been successful in launching their, euro currency in year 2000, yeah? Because, they trade among themselves and they're successful. But BRICS, I have some doubts, I have some reservation, especially that, we have China and we have Russia. This is what I can say. I do not want to talk a lot on this, but I doubt, on the political will of China, for instance, the centrally planned system. Sometimes for me, I could see that the attitude of this country is a bit different. Yeah, like, honoring a certain United Nations resolution, for instance. They do not honor, like, for instance, the South China Sea. Another thing is, like, they are very strong. This communist, part is very strong as far as their system is concerned, the socialism itself. They do not want to allow any components of the capitalism to infiltrate the system, the economic system. I give you an example, for instance, Jack Ma. Have you heard about Jack Ma? A lot of expropriations of his business is happening. You see, so in short, I have some reservation on this. What do you call that? Coalition. Okay, even though I think it is high time for us to think about the best, currency, whether it is still the U.S. dollar or it is a new currency. We do not know. In the discussion, we have this BDC, the central bank, digital currency. We talk about Bitcoin, even though some collapse occurred and that. But you see, the architectural since the Bretton Woods system collapsed when President Nixon rescinded the convertibility of gold into US dollar and vice versa.
Now, allow me to cut you a second, because I think you've raised a very important point here. You define that you are saying your position is that it may not happen, but first of all, in terms of the significance, if I can make it that way, and also in terms of the philosophy, in terms of the way the countries are talking about China and their thing. What do you think? What do the others think? Prof. Tirimba, what do you think? Because I mean, I'm talking about somebody else. I don't know. I'm talking to Prof. Tirimba because I'm thinking about what is happening right now in Kenya. 2 or 3 days ago, there has been an announcement. I mean, something in the newspaper, not announcement, something in the newspaper coming up. I mean, I think it was last week. So things. What do you think? Thank you, Prof. Nasution. You've sent the thing, Prof. Tirimba.
Thank you, Prof. Marianne. I'm looking at it that first of all, the world is not happy with what the United States are doing. They are weaponizing the US dollar, creating a lot of sanctions to a number of countries. We have had sanctions to Iran, to Russia, and many other countries which are very much affected by them, and making even their terms of trade to be at a point of imbalance. So to me, I'm looking at it that it is possible. That is where we are headed. We cannot, of course, dispute the fact that currently the dollar is still dominant, but it is a matter of time. Currently, there's a lot of conversations which is ongoing. We have many countries which are entering into regional agreements to come up with regional currency so that they can be able to better their trade, so that they do not have to use the dollar. In addition to the BRICS agreement, so because of that, and again, we have even countries which want to trade directly using their local currency with respect to that of the other country, thereby not really involving their transactions to that of the dollar. Because of that, to me, the conversation is real. We have not yet, of course, gotten there, but it's a matter of time. So the question is not about whether we shall get there or not. Indeed, we shall get there. It's about when.
Oh, okay. All right. Prof. Simatupang, what do you think? What is your opinion?
Well, if we reflect from the IMF data 2022, that the GDP from the BRICS itself is actually giving 22.5 trillion US dollar. And then if we can see from the populations from the BRICS itself, is 40% is the members of this country out of the 100% of world populations. And we can see from the global economics, they generate 25% and 70% from the international trade. So what we can reflect from this data, for Indonesian context, as if I'm not mistaken, this coming August in South Africa will be the BRICS meeting again, and our foreign ministers actually would like to attend these available meetings to see the possibility of whether Indonesia will join with this BRICS or not. But according to the Indonesian context, we have to think also it's not only in terms of the what we call the BRICS members, but of course we have to see in Indonesia context, again, the what we call the political relations, because
Yes. Okay. Okay.
yeah, because we have to relate that with our, the fundamental of our economic structures in the futures, because it's not what we call easy decisions if we like to convert our international payment into the BRICS currency, because we have to relate it that what we have now in Indonesia context, as I mentioned before, we have to make it in our fundamental of our structures, ideology, and others regulation that we have in Indonesia.
Okay.
Because again, it is make as a macroeconomic said, multiplier effect to those sectors. It's not only in terms of monetary, but of course into the others. So by saying that, I have to say that in the context of entrepreneurs from Indonesia perspective, from the investors, and from the economics point of view, I see that it is a long journey to using this kind of BRICS in terms of the Indonesian context.
So now Prof. Tirimba is saying it's a matter of time that things may turn around, and you're saying that it may be a long journey. So you're looking at a long-term horizon. What does, Prof. Pepra, what do you think? You live in the US, based on the situation there and what is happening around, where I suppose you have your ear to the ground closer to there. What is your opinion?
So from my perspective, I'm going to say what I've seen. So the US dollar, in terms of paper currency or fiat currency, is the most widely circulated currency.
Okay.
So if any currency want to triple it down or bring it down, that country must allow its currency in terms of circulation to surpass or equal to the circulation of the US dollars. What it means
but what
is that
about
that country.
Yes, I'm thinking of the multi-dollar system. Let's say, because BRICS really, it is not one currency. It's together coming as a block. So how?
They will have to develop a paper currency or a SWIFT system that will allow them to, when I say SWIFT system, electronic system, that will allow them to trade.
Yes.
And then exchange their currencies very easily. If you notice, most of the SWIFT systems you have in the world are US dollar SWIFT systems. So these two strategies are what is making the US dollar stronger. The third point is that US is a major consumer of all international products. So as they are consuming more, whoever sells to them, they will pay you in their currency.
Yes.
So whatever currency that is envisaging to compete with the US dollar, that country must be prepared to be a major consumer. So these are the three things that I think that are really working to making the US currency a dominant one. So any competitor currency must make sure that they have these kind of futures. The fourth one is the legal tender in terms of military power. Legal tender. You see, it's very difficult to counterfeit the US dollar as compared to other currencies in the world. And the military power that they have used to back it, if they see someone counterfeiting their currency, the way that the US country will go down on them, the kind of measures they put in place. Any country or currency that is trying to compete with the US dollar may have to have these kind of systems in place to be able to triple it down. So mentioning again, consumption, an electronic system, that is a SWIFT system, legal tender backed by military power. And then the last one, which I will say should be in a form of a store of value or stability. We've noticed that the US economy has been very stable. Any country that is trying to go on that line will show off a form of stability. My fifth point, what I think that may, if it becomes acceptable may compete with the US dollar is a cryptocurrency. But we all know that it doesn't have a legal tender yet. Should it have a legal tender, then it may seem to be something that we can use to compete or to be able to be in the line of the US dollar. So that is the fifth one, which is the cryptocurrency, is still not being accepted yet. If it becomes acceptable and has a legal tender, it will really help.
Okay, all right. Now, in that, clearly now on one side, I am hearing two sides of the question. Two sides of the answer. On one point, there is a part of the situation that joining some of us here saying that it cannot happen because of some certain situations, because of certain conditions, because of the precedence of the US dollar primacy. But others are saying that, yes, it can happen. It's a matter of time. And it is, let's face it, today things go happen so very fast. And we have had situations where things happen overnight and we cannot say, how did that happen? So others are saying, yes, actually it can happen. It's a matter of time. What would you advise? And I'm going to ask that to Prof. Tirimba. What would you advise entrepreneur, people transacting in US, sending children to school, paying in US dollar, doing business and exporting, importing, foreign direct investment, all of those kinds of things. What would you advise these people to do in the foreseeable future, facing that uncertainty? Because we are now in the road, in the valley of between two things that is going to happen. In that scenario where we are, in that uncertainty, what would you suggest that these people do to safeguard their asset? What must they do? What are the precautions that they must take so that they don't fall, victim of certain situation, whatever turn it turns out? What is your take?
Thank you, Prof. Marianne, for that question. First, of course, I want to still insist that looking at how things are going is a matter of time. And I want to agree that, of course, it's going to take long before we can be able to end the dollar dominance, but it's a matter of time, be it 50 years to come, be it 100 years to come, the dollar will likely stop being dominant unless they change their game of weaponization of the dollar. What is likely to, of course, is that business entrepreneurs or people transacting in the US dollar, if we are going to have the issue of de-dollarization taking effect, is that they should be able to make use of financial instruments, like, for example, the currency future, the currency forwards or options contracts, to be able to hedge against their currency risk. Because if you're talking about a possible situation whereby we might have a lot of volatility, then cushioning their currency could be the way forward. Another way, of course, is to probably diversify their currency holdings by converting the US dollar, which is held into stable currencies. We have other currencies which are quite stable. And of course, when you look at the strong currencies in the world, you find that the dollar is not number one. In fact, the dollar is number 10 because we have the Kuwait dinar, the British pound, the euro, Gibraltar pound, and many others which are leading in the list. So you can be able to take advantage by diversifying your currency holding to other currencies which are stable, so that you can be able to take advantage.
Now, allow me to jump in with a question. Let's say now we are in a country like Kenya. I suppose Kenya will be easier, but let me say another country which is close, in an East African country which is not Kenya. Would that possibility be done? Can people hold their money, the savings they have been holding? Can they put it in other currencies rather than the dollar? Clearly, everybody, when we talk, they talk only dollars. So what is your take? What is your thinking, and Prof. Tirimba?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, I will agree. Like Africa, I was mentioning that Africa is moving towards establishment of common currency, so that they can be able to have a regional currency to use for the purpose of trading. So according to me, given the great vulnerability which is likely to come by countries transacting in their local currency. And given the likelihood that we are likely to have de-dollarization, thereby ending the dollar dominance in the future, there will be need for these countries to be able to harmonize about which currency they are going to transact in. And of course, look at how they can be able to ensure that that currency will be stable in order to ensure that they promise stability even when it comes to international trade.
Okay, thank you. Prof. Nasution, what would you advise?
Well, tell you frankly, we are talking about the experience of using the US dollar. That's why it is dominant now. But, you know, sooner or later, we've been discussing this a long time ago, Dr. Marianne.
Yes.
What is the best architectural design for the monetary system? Long time ago, especially since the collapse of the fixed exchange regime, you know, which of course is backed up by gold. When President Nixon of the United States rescinded the convertibility of gold, you know, into US dollar and vice versa. You see, people are thinking that is in 1970 something, you know, early 1970. Until now, everybody has not been coming up with a certain solution until the invasion.
Yes, so
until the invasion.
So are you saying that therefore, in that light, because of what has happened and the trend, are you saying that the people should still? That's the is that the advice you're giving is that they should still hold on to the dollar, or like Prof. Tirimba, who is saying let's diversify. So what do you think? What is the best?
My advice is you know, for the US dollar to be kept a while, you know, wait and see, because you know it is not just easy for the BRICS to topple down US dollar in a very short. They need to build up these infrastructures. They're thinking now to build this African Development Bank as the what do you call that? As the it is like comparable like the International Monetary Fund and so on. It will take some time. Yeah, not to mention the debts. You know, debts, you know, ranging with a tenor of 5 years to 15 years. They are all in US dollar. See, but again, I agree that, you know, somewhere, somehow, a certain architectural, what do you call that, monetary design must be, reach. You know, must be attained, must be achieved. So my what do you call that? My advice is still, you know, the show must go on with the US dollar. But you know, if you can use your own what do you call that, local currency, like it's fine, no problem. But again, there's also another reservation of you, like for instance the ASEAN country, the 10 countries now, you know, I think it was in March or April, I forgot, there's a summit, you know, that they have agreed to what do you call that, use the respective like for instance the rupiah of Indonesia can be a means of payment to pay something in an international trade to Thailand, and Thailand baht can also win, and vice versa. And also, you know, this is, but not a specific currency, no. Yeah. So I have also some reservation on that. You see. So in the meantime, what we can do, hang on the US dollar. You know, even though people are thinking, oh, gold investment is good now, because people are thinking of, but again, hang on the US dollar, but, you know, keep on working on what is the best monetary system that people has been talking about since the collapse of the exchange rate regime. I think this is what I'm thinking. It will take some time.
What is your last word? What is your last word of advice?
My last word is that we should also remember that the US will also not sit down for their currency to be devalued or to be replaced. So I know that they are also putting in measures to counteract these actions. So that is why we all have to have a wait and see attitude. You keep some currencies or savings in your local currency to support your own country's economy. And then you also keep a little bit of the US dollar for your international transactions.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Simatupang. What do you think?
Well, the fluctuation of hard currency actually give two part of consequences: full and partial cost. So to answer this question, actually, every countries such as like Indonesia or other Asian countries, it actually is to balance their international trade. Means that,
But for the regular person, the one who is doing business, the entrepreneur, how does that affect his? Yes.
Yeah,
go ahead.
exactly. That's how I would like to answer that questions. Is not to depend on particular countries. So
Okay.
you as an entrepreneur has to see and to penetrate other countries, like what we did in Indonesia. We are not focusing from one country to other countries, but we see kind of a possibility to deal together with others
Okay.
countries rather than to go with only for using hard currencies. Yeah.
Okay.
That is
Okay.
how entrepreneur has to do.
Okay. So you are thinking of a just diversifying option rather than just depending on one. So instead of keeping all the money in dollar, a little bit like what Dr. Pipra was mentioning, that it needs to be be a little bit cautious in both ways. All right. Now, we are almost at the end of our presentations, and there was a question there that has been asked, and the question is the dominance, and maybe I will ask that for Dr. Simatupang, you said that you were a pastor, right? Said the dominance of the American dollar is the dominance of the American dollar pointing to the sign of the times and the fulfillment of the prophecy of the book of Revelation regarding the dominance of USA.
I think Professor Eric will the one who eligible to answer that question rather than me. Please, Prof.
So who else would like to address this question? And the question was, does it, and it's true. I mean, as if we deal with it as Christians and as SDAs, we look at it in a sort of a end times perspective. So. What is the question? What is the, yes, Prof. Go ahead, Eric, please.
Prof. Eric, can you unmute?
Sorry, I did not hear you.
I'm saying Prof. Eric should unmute.
Yeah. Well, this is a very unique, what do you call that, questions, because, we are linking with the prophecy. But, I have one articles, I think last year, last 2 years, I forgot, which I have linked. Of course, this is an empirical study taking advantage of the econometrics data and analysis. I was able to prove what Daniel in Daniel 2 has interpreted, King Nebuchadnezzar's dream about that statue and the 10 feet that some something this is the big rocks is going to crush the feet. And you see what is happening. Basically, they are Europe. Europe is declining in a way because the question is, what is the prophecy here? So we do not know. We do not know, but we can see by the signs of the time that it realizes bit by bit. Yeah.
Okay.
So we do not know what is really the fate of the European countries, but this is what happened. I don't know that it must be a question from I do not know from AUA or from yes.
All right. All right. What do the others think?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. What do the others think? Any insight about this issue? Otherwise, let me.
I think that the prophecy points to, as we have, to the United States. So any element or variable within the United States can be a significant future in the fulfillment of the prophecy.
All right. Yes.
So I can see that the dollar dominance can also be a factor in terms of economic trade and other linkages that we can deduce.
Okay.
We may not be able to say exactly, but we can infer.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I think that there was somebody asking a question. Oseiko Fu, you had a question, I believe, and I don't see it in the chat, but yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you had a question, kindly.
The unity. You know, we Africans here, we cannot unite. Now talk of ECO. Now it came that we should have a single currency for ECOWAS. And then it could not happen. Same thing could not happen. So the issue, apart from other things said, the issue actually is on unity of the African mind. Our attitude to unite as one people to fight common cause is not there. So I'm actually thinking how even union can come up with a single currency to fight the dollar. So if you don't come together as one, it will be highly impossible to fight the dominance of the dollar.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Yes. Thank you. That was a comment, I believe, not necessarily a question, unless our facilitators have something to interject or to add to that, or even to argue against or something like that. I do not know. I want to also take a comment, a last comment before we end, from Kwame Simpe. I think you had you wanted to ask a question or to say something.
Yes, hello.
Yes, please. Yes.
In addressing Professor Davidson's question, I think one key issue or element that hinges on this prophecy is also trading, and Professor Pepra made mention of that, and that is significant. So looking at the trends, no matter the currency that may be in the near future that may be proposed or be accepted through policy and whatever actions that may be taken, trading would never be out of the picture. And that is what influences the various currencies, even across the globe.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. We have reached the end of this discussion for tonight. I want to thank the facilitators. Thank you, dear facilitators, for sharing with the audience your insights and your perspective. I believe it was an eye-opener for some of us, because it is important to understand. And I do realize that we have not exhausted everything. And we, to our attendees, thank you for joining us. And I believe that as you have started looking into the issue, I would like to wish you and to pray that you get further knowledge regarding the matter, especially now when we are ending with that question regarding the prophecy and how it's going to affect sooner or later to join a conversation that was being said, that it is something that is with us for a while, and therefore it is important for us to be prepared, to understand, to be aware of how it's going on, to be cautious. I want to taking the word of Prof. Pepra, where he said we have to be cautious, and Simatupang to be cautious and to look at it and to tread carefully. We also want to do research, like Prof. Nasution have said, so that we do not lose sight of everything. And also we have to look at the other perspectives. And I like the contribution of Prof. Tirimba Ondabu, who said that, you know, things may happen, and I mean, maybe not necessarily tomorrow, but it may happen, and we need to be in the lookout and be very alert. And so thank you so much for our 4 facilitators for joining us. taking the time, taking the preparation, and for our audience. And I wish you all the best. And we trust that some other time we may meet you again for another maybe webinar for on another topic that we may have we will organize. And may the Lord be with each one of you. And until then, may the Lord bless you, and we'll see you again. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Yeah, good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
from
Yes.
Indonesia.
Hi, good morning. Yes. See you again. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Mari, Dr. Ibrahim, Dr.
Thank
Williams, Professor Eric.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful.